He must have slipped or gotten distracted or something because there was no way I should have gotten past him that easily. The quarterback was stepping back and looking to his left when I hit him. The ball slipped from his hands and I managed to recover it. Just like that, we were on their 23-yard line, down 23-21 with less than 2 minutes left. As I was heading off the field, I noticed Brad Thomas, our quarterback, moving towards the ball with the rest of the team. Jesus, Denton, I should give you a week with Connie for that play. It's a good thing he said that while he was already beside me. Otherwise, I might have knocked him to the ground right then and there. Connie, Constance Dennis, was Brad's girlfriend, and the girl I'd been hopelessly in love with for what felt like forever. Everyone knew it and loved to give me a hard time about it, especially Brad. He got a kick out of reminding me that he had her and I didn't. A week-long date with Connie? I hadn't even had one. I must have asked her out 100 times, only to be turned down every single time. What made it worse was that she was always there for me. We had half our classes together, and because of our last names, Dennis and Denton, we always ended up sitting next to each other. If there was a group project, we were inevitably paired up. She was a cheerleader, and she was always near the bench where I sat when I wasn't on the field. If that wasn't enough, she was my sister Alice's best friend and practically lived at our house, especially since we had a pool. I won't even get started on what seeing Connie in a swimsuit did to me. The offensive linemen were out of the game, and we stood on the sideline, cheering, as Brad threw a pass to Kyle for 6 yards. Then, an incomplete pass to Eddie, another pass for 9 yards. Finally, Coach Brannigan decided to just go for the field goal. We all held our breath as the ball was snapped to Mike, who placed it perfectly, and Ronnie kicked it through the uprights, giving us a 24-23 win. The crowd went wild. For a lot of people, beating Roosevelt was the mark of a successful season. We could have lost every other game, but if we beat Rosie, it was a win in their book. Ronnie came up to me after and asked if I was going to Ken's victory party. I told him no. Why the hell not? This was your victory, Bobby. None of this would have happened if you hadn't recovered that ball. I just wouldn't feel comfortable. Jesus, Bobby, pull yourself together. You're 18, a senior in high school, not some kid. So what if she's there with Brad? There are plenty of other girls at this school and in this town, who would love to date you if you'd just get your head out of your ass. I didn't know why he said that. I was dating, but none of the girls I went out with had that spark that made me want to be with them long term. You're old enough to know you're not going to get everything you want. Life isn't like that. Go to the party. Show everyone you can handle it. He was right, and I knew it, but the thought of seeing Connie with Brad still killed me. Brad was an asshole, and I couldn't understand why she was with him. But as Ronnie pointed out, I was old enough to know I wasn't going to get everything I wanted. I should go to the party, if only to see Connie one last time. If the rumors were true, she was heading east for college, and I might never see her again, Senna. But no. I told Ronnie I'd go, and we headed to the locker room. When I showed up at the party, the looks of surprise were almost amusing. I wasn't known for attending events where Connie and Brad might show up, or rather where Connie and her latest life partner would be. In 10th grade, it had been Harry. In 11th, it was Norm, and now it was Brad. I'd promised myself I would ignore Connie and just try to have a good time, but of course the first person I saw when I walked in was Connie. She was chatting with Sue and Mary, 2 of her fellow cheerleaders, when Ronnie noticed me and called out, "Hey, you made it." Connie turned, saw me, smiled, wagged her finger playfully, and then went back to her conversation. I made my way over to Ronnie and the 2 guys he was with. Kenny's house had wood floors, and the living room furniture had been pushed aside to create a small dance floor. While Ronnie, Mike, Barry, and I discussed the game, we watched the couples dance to music from the record player. I'd only been there for about 15 minutes when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to find Lisa Meadows standing there. "It's Sadie Hawkins' day, Bobby. Girls ask the boys to dance, and the boys can't say no." She held out her hand, and I took it, stepping onto the makeshift dance floor with her. As we danced, Lisa asked why I hadn't called her after our last date. I lied, telling her my dad had made me work at his company, leaving me no time to date. The truth was, Lisa wanted to take things further, and I just wasn't interested. We finished our dance, she wandered off, and I rejoined Ronnie and the guys. Not even 2 minutes later, Sue asked me to dance, citing the Sadie Hawkins Day rule. Then Mary came up, followed by Kylie. While I was dancing with Kylie, I noticed something odd. None of the other guys were being asked to dance as much as I was. So I asked Kylie, "What's going on here?" She didn't play dumb. Instead, she answered bluntly, "Steve heard what Brad said to you earlier. He told Shirley, and she told all of us girls. We know you, Bobby, and we know what could happen if Brad says anything else stupid tonight. We figured if we kept you busy and away from him, we could keep you out of trouble." It was a thoughtful gesture, and I appreciated that they cared enough to try, but it was all in vain. Before Kylie could finish speaking, someone bumped into us, nearly causing her to fall. I heard a voice snap, "Watch where you're going." I turned around to see Brad dancing with Connie. I asked Kylie if she was okay, and she nodded. Then I turned to Brad and said, "You asshole! Why Connie wastes her time on a jerk like you, I'll never understand." "What did you just call me?" he asked, jabbing his finger into my chest. That was all the excuse I needed. He poked me. That's assault, right? I had to defend myself, didn't I? A fight broke out, and later I left the party. As I drove home, I replayed the whole thing in my head, already planning what I'd do to him next time. Next time. Oh yeah, there would definitely be a next time. Brad would want payback, and I intended to be ready for it. I had been home for about half an hour when Alice walked into the family room where I was watching TV. "Connie's not happy with you, little brother." I should clarify, Alice and I are twins, but she was born 6 minutes before me, and she never let me forget it. She always took pride in being the older sibling. What's she mad at me for? Her boyfriend started it. Come on, bro. I was there, and I saw the whole thing. All he did was poke you. He didn't hit you, just gave you a little tap on the chest. It didn't hurt you at all. Fine. I don't like the guy, so I took the chance to let off some steam. So what? Nothing, really. Except for Connie, most of the kids there wanted to cheer you on. Connie's only upset because when Brad's nose started bleeding, it stained her dress. Tell her I'll pay for the dry cleaning. If the stain doesn't come out, I'll buy her a new dress. I'll let her know, but you should apologize the next time you see her. Apologize? For what? For her being stupid enough to date Brad in the first place? I'm going to bed. I turned off the TV and left the room. The weekend was packed with family activities, and the only awkward moment came on Sunday afternoon. I was doing laps in the pool when Alice and Connie came outside to sunbathe. As long as I was swimming, it was fine, because I didn't have to look in their direction. But when I got out of the pool and saw Connie in her swimsuit, I couldn't help but stare. She noticed and gave me a slight smile. I quickly turned away and lay down on one of the lounge chairs, trying my best to ignore them. Connie wasn't satisfied with being ignored, though. She got up, came over, and sat on the chaise lounge next to me. "Why did you hit Brad at the party?" I wasn't in the mood to dance around the truth, so I said, "He's an asshole, and I don't like him. When he got in my face, poked me in the chest, and called me names, I decided it was time to show him just how much I dislike him." "Are you sure that's the reason, and not because he's my boyfriend?" "That's part of it, too. He flaunts it every chance he gets. Did you hear what he said to me when I got off the field after recovering that fumble?" "No." "Well, everyone else at Kenny's knew about it. I guess they didn't want me to hear it for some reason." I told her what Brad had said, and she shook her head. "I don't believe it." "Ask any of the girls I danced with that night. They all knew. That, plus the way he talked to me when he confronted Kylie and me, and then poked me in the chest, that was enough to set me off. If you need to blame someone, blame your asshole boyfriend." I got up, went inside, and headed to my room. Half an hour later, Alice knocked on my door and asked if she could come in. I said yes, and she sat on the bed while I sat at the small table I used as a desk, working on an article due the following Thursday. I put down my pencil and turned to her. Got something on your mind? You and your thing for Connie, why can't you just accept that she's not into you and move on? I've accepted it, but that doesn't mean I can just stop wanting her. Just because I know I can't have something doesn't mean I can quit wanting it. Maybe when she goes off to college and isn't around all the time, I'll be able to get over it. But as long as she's always here, it's not going anywhere. What makes you think she's going to college? I heard a rumor she's going east for school. Well, rumors are just rumors. She's staying here and going to state. Then I guess I'm stuck. Maybe it's for the best that we won't always be sitting next to each other in class, since we probably won't have many classes together. You could help by hanging out somewhere else instead of here. I need some space. You know I can't do that. She's my best friend. I'm not going to stop her from coming over just to keep you two apart. Fine. She left and I went back to my paper. On Monday, I was standing by my locker when Connie approached me. I'm sorry I doubted you, Bobby. I talked to Sue, Lisa, and Mary, and they told me what Steve said to Shirley. I'll make sure to talk to Brad before the day's over. I'd rather you didn't, I replied. Why not? He's probably already angry about what happened at the party, and I admit he's likely looking to even the score, but I doubt he's in any rush to do it. If you confront him, it might just push him over the edge, and he'll come after me right away. I don't want that. Are you scared of him? Not in this lifetime, but we need him in good shape for the Parker game on Friday. Beating Parker is crucial to getting to regionals, and while Mel could step in, he's not someone who can handle the pressure. If Brad goes after me before the game, there's a real chance he won't be able to play afterward. Are you that confident? Against Brad, absolutely. The issue is, he's not one to back down. I'll probably have to shut him down hard to keep him quiet. How come I never knew this side of you? She asked. What do you mean? I never realized how confident you are, how you think ahead and consider all the possibilities. Maybe it's because we've never really spent time together. We've known each other forever, but we've never actually gotten to know each other. And that's not on me. I've tried, but it just never happened. I've got to get to class, I said, closing my locker and heading off to our first period. I wasn't sure if Connie had spoken to Brad or not, but just as I had predicted, he was waiting by the car when class ended. You and I are so... was all he managed to say before I cut him off with a smack right on the lips. I had no doubt the rest of his sentence would have been something like unfinished business. But I wasn't about to stand there and let him talk his way into a fight. As I turned to get in the car, I noticed half a dozen of my classmates watching the scene unfold, including Connie and Alice. Not one of them said a word as I got in the car and drove off. The real confrontation happened later, though, once Alice got home. What the hell is wrong with you, little brother? You can't just go around hitting guys because they're dating Connie. This isn't about him dating Connie. That jerk was waiting for me after school, looking for trouble, and I gave it to him. If he tries it again, I'll do the same until he gets the message to leave me alone. Still. Enough, Alice. Just drop it, I snapped, stepping away from her and heading for my room. The next morning I was caught off guard when I got in the car to drive to school. Connie was already sitting in the front seat. Usually she rode with Alice, or Alice would ride with her. I guess this is a good time to mention that our parents were quite wealthy, and Alice and I were thoroughly spoiled. They gave each of us a car as soon as we got our driver's licenses. Both were Ford coupes. Mine was black, and Alice's was white. Luckily, the cars were easy on gas, which was fortunate since it cost just 27 cents a gallon. Connie's family was well off too, so she had her own car as well. But it wasn't all cake for Alice and me. Our father owned 3 businesses, and since we were 13, we'd been working part-time in them. Mostly it was on weekends during summer vacations and school breaks, though sometimes we'd have to put in hours after school. The expectation was that after graduation, we'd transition into full-time roles. However, Mom persuaded Dad to let us enjoy our graduation and the summer that followed, so we weren't working at the moment. Now, back to my unexpected passenger. Surprised? Connie asked. Yes. What's the occasion? Remember what we talked about the other day? We've lived in the same neighborhood forever, but I don't really know you. I thought we could chat on the way to school and back, and I could get to know you better. Why bother? The more time I spend with you, the more tempted I'll be to ask you out again, and I'll just get frustrated when you say no. How do you know I'll say no again? Because you always have, and besides, you're constantly dating Brad. Things change, Bobby. Nothing is set in stone. She kept probing me with questions all the way to school, and I could tell she was genuinely surprised by some of the things she learned. As we pulled into the school parking lot, something happened that I'd been hoping to avoid. Brad saw us getting out of my car and walking into the school together. It was only going to add fuel to the fire already burning between us. Before soccer practice that day, Coach Billings gave us the usual pep talk about being ready to face Parker on Friday. You can beat them. You have the tools to get the job done, and so on. If you've ever played team sports, you know the drill. Brad kept his distance during practice and in the locker room afterward. I half expected him to be waiting by my car when I got there, but he wasn't. Instead, he was positioned where he could see Connie getting into the car with me to drive home, and I wondered what was going through his mind. On the way home, Connie asked me about my future plans, and I explained that everything depended on Uncle Sam. What do you mean? With everything going on in Korea, there's a good chance I'll be drafted into the Army. I have a low draft number. What does that mean? You know that guys have to register for the draft on their 18th birthday, right? No, I didn't know that. My dad took me to register the day after my birthday. If I get a draft notice while I'm in college, I can defer. But if it comes before, I'll probably have to go. Isn't there some way you can get out of it? There are probably ways, but I can't use them. Why not? Because my father would probably disown me. He believes it's your duty to serve your country if it calls. He could have avoided serving in World War II, since 2 of his companies were producing goods for the war effort. He could have claimed they needed him to keep things running. But instead, he handed over the businesses to my mom and went to war himself. He wouldn't be too pleased if I tried to dodge the draft. He's even hinted that I should enlist and delay college until after I'm discharged. What are you going to do? I'm hoping my draft number doesn't come up. I'm not planning to enlist. She fell silent for about 15 seconds, then said, I agree with your father about serving your country if called upon. That's easy for you to say. You'll be at home, having a good time, not in some foreign country under fire. By then we'd arrived at my driveway. I got out, walked around to her side, and opened the door. She got out, surprised me by standing on her toes to kiss me, then turned and walked across the lawn to her house. I wasn't surprised when Connie wasn't in my car the next morning. She and Alice had driven to school together. The real surprise came at lunch. I was sitting at a table in the school cafeteria when I saw Connie go through the lunch line. She paid the cashier, looked around the room, and then, instead of heading to Brad's table at the other end of the room, she walked straight to mine. May I sit with you? Of course you can, but try not to look too surprised when I ask why you're sitting here instead of with Brad. Brad and I broke up. He became too clingy, and when he said he didn't want me around you, that was the last straw. So, where are we going on our first date? What? It's a simple question. You should be able to answer it easily. I'm not sure I understand what's going on here. After talking with Alice, I realized you'd given up on asking me out, so I'm taking the initiative. I'm assuming you still want to spend some time with me. I might have been taken aback, but I wasn't clueless. Of course I'd like to spend time with you, but not until after the game with Parker on Friday. Given everything going on with Brad, if he sees us together before the game, he might cause trouble. We need him for the game. Win or lose, there'll be a party somewhere afterward. How about we go together? Not a good idea. If we win, everyone will be excited, and if Brad's there, he might do something to spoil the mood. If we lose, everyone will be down, and we don't want to add to that. How about we go out on Saturday instead? That works for me. What should we do? Think about it and let me know what you'd like to do. Just then the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. We got up and headed to class. Brad kept his distance during practice and in the locker room, and Connie did the same at school, but we spent time together at home after school. For our Saturday night date, she chose a double feature at the Martha Washington Movie Theater, followed by milkshakes at Harry's Malt Shop. The game against Parker on Friday was intense. We scored, then they scored. We scored again, and so did they. We managed to score one more time, but then a fumble gave them possession on our 50-yard line. They advanced to our 43, and everything seemed to go wrong. Brad made a rare mistake. I shouldn't have gotten past him so easily. The quarterback was stepping back, looking left when I hit him. The ball slipped out, and while I tried to recover it, I got knocked out of position. Parker's halfback grabbed it, and with 49 seconds left on the clock, they attempted a field goal that missed by inches. We regained possession with 11 seconds left, and Brad ran the ball down the field in 3 plays, setting up the winning touchdown. The party that night was at Eddie's place. I danced with every girl there, including Connie. Brad was present too, but Connie avoided him. When he asked her to dance, she declined. He scowled, called her a bitch, and Eddie asked him to leave. After Brad apologized and left, Connie danced only with me. Our Saturday date went smoothly, and after a few more outings I officially asked her out, and she said yes. We lost to Meadow Creek in the regional tournament, but we were still proud of making it that far. The final score was 24-21, just like our win over Parker that had gotten us there. Connie and I began kissing regularly, and those kisses often grew quite passionate. But when my hands started to wander, she made it clear she planned to walk down the aisle as a virgin. Now that we were officially dating, I decided I wanted to be the one to marry her and have the honor of walking her down that aisle. After graduation, we spent the summer enjoying various activities, going to the lake, hitting the amusement park, playing miniature golf, and of course making out. One night, Connie revealed something to me. "I've known since I was 15 that you'd be my boyfriend, but I didn't expect it to happen until my 2nd or 3rd year of college. My mom made me promise not to get into a serious relationship until I'd had a chance to explore other options. I was aware of your crush on me. Everyone knew. So, I dated other people to keep my promise and to see if anyone else could compare. It was presumptuous of me to think you'd wait, but I hoped you would. Eventually, I couldn't deny my feelings for you any longer. Please, don't hate me for taking so long. I can't hate you, even if I tried. I'm just frustrated about all the time we missed out on together." For my 19th birthday in August, Connie told me she had a special gift for me after the party my parents had thrown. Once everyone had left and my parents and Alice had gone to bed, Connie and I lay by the pool. A month before college started, I proposed to Connie. She said yes, and I slipped the ring onto her finger. Although she initially wanted a small, intimate wedding, both of her parents were set on something larger. By mid-October, both mothers had begun planning and discussing the details of the wedding. 3 days before school was set to start, I called Connie and told her I needed to see her. When she arrived, she found me sitting on the couch with a blank expression. "What's wrong, Robbie?" I held out a piece of paper and said, "I got this in the mail today." "What is it?" she asked, looking concerned. I unfolded the paper and read aloud, "The President of the United States of America to Robert Allen Dust Denton. Greetings. You are hereby ordered to report for enlistment in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. When do you have to go?" It says September 28th. "We'll have to ask the moms to postpone the wedding until you're gone." "I don't know if they can. We won't know until we ask." It quickly became apparent that it wasn't just a matter of the mom's decision. Both of our fathers weighed in, stating that getting married right before I left for military service was not a good idea. Their reasoning was straightforward. There was a war in Korea, and I was likely to be sent there. There's no point in getting married, living together for a few weeks, and then going off to war, where, God forbid, you might be killed and leave Connie a widow. You should serve your 2 years and then come home and get married. I understood the logic, but Connie couldn't see it that way. She thought if something happened to me, she would at least have had some time with me. So I made the hardest decision of my life up to that point. I sided with my father. Connie was devastated, crying for days. Every time we were together, she would burst into tears. When school started, she refused to sign up for classes against her parents' wishes. "I've only got Rob for 2 more weeks, and I'm spending all my time with him. I'll start school next semester." The day before I was set to leave, I faced another difficult choice. After a movie and a visit to Harry's malt shop, Connie said as we got into my car. "I don't want to go home. Find us a motel." "What?" "You heard me. Find us a motel. I'm not going to wait until we get married. You are the man I'm walking down the aisle with, and you were going to be the one to take my virginity that night. But since you're leaving, I want to give it to you now." "No." "What do you mean? No?" "No, I'm not taking you to a motel. I know how much it means to you to walk down the aisle as a virgin. As much as it pains me to do this, I won't take that dream away from you. We've managed to wait over a year. We can wait until I get back from the service. If we're meant to be together, it will happen. And if not, you have every right to walk down the aisle clean, both for yourself and for whoever you're with." She cried as I drove us home and ran across the lawn to her house as soon as I stopped the car. The next day, she didn't come to see me leave. My induction process took 2 days, filled with physical exams and a slew of tests. I was given 2 days to settle my affairs, during which I tried calling Connie several times, but she didn't return my calls. 2 days later, I arrived at Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. I called home and Dad answered. I gave him my military address in case he, Mom, or Alice wanted to write. Connie wasn't mentioned during the conversation. In the second week of training, I received my first letter from home. It was a tear-streaked letter from Connie, apologizing for how she'd reacted. She said that although I had hurt her, it didn't justify her actions. She begged for my forgiveness, expressing her love and saying she was praying for me. I wrote back, assuring her that I loved her too, and that she was my reason for staying safe. After that, I received 1 or 2 letters from her each week. Upon completing basic training, I was sent to Fort Lee, Virginia for cargo handler training. When I left Fort Lee, I had a 10-day extension, which I used to return home. I called to announce my arrival, and when I got off the bus, I saw Connie waiting for me. She ran up, threw her arms around me, and kissed me, not letting go. Eventually, I pulled away and said we had 8 days to cherish each other. It wasn't entirely true, as I needed to spend some time with my family, but Connie was like family to me, so she was a big part of that time too. We managed to have a lot of intimate moments together, including oral sex. The vacation was too short, and saying goodbye to her was incredibly tough. I had to leave for Fort Lewis, Washington, where I would spend a week or so before shipping out to Korea. Through my tears, I reassured Connie. I'm stationed at Quartermain. I'll be in the rear, handling supplies for the troops. I won't be in a position where I could get shot at." Looking back, I realize how naive I was. I was indeed sending supplies to the front lines, but I didn't fully grasp that I would also be delivering them directly to the front. Supplies arrived in Busan, where quartermasters sorted them into smaller packages. These were then loaded onto trucks and driven up to the front lines. Korea's mountainous terrain was treacherous, and North Korean and Chinese forces frequently ambushed convoys traveling from Busan to the front. We usually traveled in convoys of 8 to 12 trucks, accompanied by 2 or 3 jeeps armed with .50 caliber machine guns. Each truck carried 2 men, and we were all armed. I had an M1 Garand rifle and a .45 caliber 1911A1 pistol. The trucks had holes in their roofs with .30 caliber machine guns mounted on rings. There were 51 men stationed at the depot, and we rotated duties, so I would be out on the roads about once every 2 weeks. We were often shelled, and although the machine guns helped fend off attackers, we still suffered occasional casualties. I was in the 4th Squad when I earned my first Purple Heart. It wasn't severe. A bullet went through the windshield and grazed my shoulder. It hurt like hell, but there was no lasting damage. My letters home only mentioned that I was working in a supply depot far from the front lines. Once a week, I received a letter from Connie updating me on school and our classmates. She expressed her deep love and anticipation for my return. After 7 months in Korea, I received a letter from Alice. She and Connie had been arguing, and Alice was no longer willing to overlook Connie's actions. She informed me that Connie was seeing someone else, and felt I needed to know. I couldn't understand why Alice thought I needed to know. The knowledge left me devastated. For 2 days, I was consumed by anger and bitterness towards Connie, berating her in my mind. When I received Connie's weekly letter, I almost discarded it without reading. I wasn't in the mood to hear about her undying love and longing for my return. I recalled the words I had once said, mirroring my father's view. "That's easy for you to say. You'll date and have fun while I'm out here taking bullets." Now, it felt like that was happening. Ultimately, I decided to read the letter before writing a harsh reply. What I found was not what I expected. "My dear Rob, as you read this, know that you are always in my heart. I'm going through a difficult time and have been seeing other guys. Please don't see this as a Dear John letter. I am yours and always will be." The truth is, I was going crazy, just sitting at home with nothing to do but homework. So I started going on dates. They are not replacing you. They will not have what you have had from me. Please understand, my love. It's just not natural for a young girl to stay home and do nothing. I tried to keep busy on my own, but I felt like an outsider. I repeat, you are not being replaced. I love you, and I will be here waiting for you when you return. Please understand. With all my love, Connie. I was furious. My anger boiled over as I crumpled up the letter and threw it in the trash. Did I believe Connie's explanation? Not for a second. While she was dating, she hadn't been honest with me. There was always a risk she might fall for someone else. I wasn't there. I couldn't compete. My mind was consumed with these thoughts for days before I finally calmed down enough to think things through. Eventually, I came to understand her point. Staying home and doing nothing wasn't natural for someone our age. But couldn't she have spent time with her girlfriends instead of dating other guys? I had to accept that she was thousands of miles away, and there was nothing I could do about it. However, I decided I could still express my frustration. I wrote several long letters, but ended up discarding them all. Instead, I kept it brief and sharp. "Constance, I'm glad to know you're enjoying yourself while I'm out here getting shot at. I hope you didn't wear my ring while you were dating other guys. That would be the height of disrespect. Please give my ring to Alice or my parents. Robert P.S. Don't write to me again. The fact that I used Constance instead of the nicknames she always called me and omitted darling from the letter likely stung. I sent the letter, not expecting a response. I was wrong. A week later, I received a letter from Alice. Connie had confided in her, distraught and in tears about my letter. She was afraid that if she wrote back, I'd throw her letter away unread. She didn't want to lose me, but was at a loss about what to do. She begged Alice for help. Alice wanted to know what Connie could do. I replied, asking Alice to tell Connie that while I still didn't want to hear from her directly, if Connie was not involved with anyone when I returned, I might consider if anything could be salvaged. I also asked Alice to keep an eye on Connie and inform me if Connie did anything that could jeopardize any chance we might have when I got back. 2 days later, I was under fire again. It seemed someone had realized that shooting at moving trucks wasn't very effective at stopping them. As we rounded a corner, we encountered a roadblock and had to disembark, take cover, and return fire, except for those manning the .50 and .30 caliber machine guns. The officer in charge, a West Pointer named Simmons, who was probably frustrated at being assigned to a supply unit rather than a combat unit, decided to prove his worth. He gathered us together and ordered us up the hill. For a West Pointer, Simmons wasn't exactly a tactical genius. Despite having already radioed that a group of F-86 Sabre fighters were on their way, he still led us into a risky position. When the F-86S arrived and started their attack, some of us ended up dangerously close to the enemy. I can't say for sure whether it was an enemy bullet or a stray fragment from the Sabre's strafing that hit me, but something tore into my side, and I collapsed. Luckily, we had a medic with us who reached me almost immediately. He applied a bandage and reassured me that my injury wasn't too severe, instructing me to hold the bandage tight while he went to tend to others. The wounded were loaded into the back of a truck and sent back to Busan. There, it was confirmed that my injury, whether from a bullet or debris, hadn't penetrated my body, and nothing internally was damaged. 3 days later, I was back on my feet and working again, albeit with some difficulty. I received a second Purple Heart and a few other commendations. For those familiar with military life, it's no surprise that many leaders are less than competent. Simmons was a prime example. The something else was that somewhere along the line, someone mistakenly reported me as killed. My parents received a "we regret to inform you" letter. This mistake meant I couldn't write home for about 3 weeks, which only added to the confusion. When Alice received my letter, dated 3 weeks after the erroneous report of my death, the reaction at home was devastating. Connie, upon hearing the news, was inconsolable. She locked herself in her room for 3 days, and her parents put her under suicide watch after her mother overheard her crying in the bathroom, muttering something about being with me in death. Connie withdrew from school, avoided leaving the house, and spent most of her time in her room in tears. My family, while deeply affected, were better equipped to handle grief, having experienced it before. Dad had lost a brother and 2 cousins, and Mom had lost a brother and an uncle during World War II. They knew how to cope. When they received my letter confirming I was alive, Connie emerged from her shell and asked Alice to let me know that if I wanted my ring back, I'd have to come home to personally remove it from her finger. I completed 2 more flights under fire before the fighting subsided following the events at Panmunjom. While I continued to deliver supplies to the troops, I never heard another shot fired. After finishing my 16-month tour in Korea, I returned home. At Fort Lewis, I was issued a new uniform, promoted to E4, corporal, and transferred to Fort Hood, Texas. I took 30 days of accrued leave, along with a 10-day travel delay, and headed home. The letters from Alice informed me that Connie had stopped seeing anyone and rarely left the house, except for school. I called ahead to let her know I'd be arriving and around what time, so I wasn't surprised to find her house packed with people waiting for me. Connie, however, was noticeably missing. Alice told me Connie was too afraid to face me. After mingling with our house guests, which included Connie's parents, I excused myself and went to Connie's house. I walked up to her room and knocked on the door. When she opened it, I didn't give her a chance to speak. I gently, but firmly, took her left arm and removed the ring she was still wearing. She looked at me in stunned silence, tears welling up in her eyes. Dropping to one knee, I asked, "Constance Marie Dennis, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears streamed down her face, and when I stood up, she flung herself into my arms, clinging to me and sobbing, "Please don't ever leave me again." I tried to pull away gently after a while, but she held on tightly. Finally, I said, "Come on, honey. We need to tell our moms to start planning the wedding." Her eyes sparkled with hope. "Are you serious? Do you really mean it?" "I want to," I replied. Those same 2 words were spoken again 4 months later, surrounded by 86 family and friends, as we celebrated our commitment to each other.